You think you're drinking beer. 4 ingredients: water, barley, hops, yeast. That's what beer is supposed to be. But crack open most popular American beers and you'll find corn syrup, rice fillers, artificial foam stabilizers, mystery natural flavors, and ingredients the label never bothers to mention. 15 of the most popular beers in America. We're breaking down what's actually inside every single one. Some will disgust you, some will surprise you, and the beers at the top of this list will completely restore your faith in honest brewing. The beer industry has been lying to your face for decades. Today, we stop guessing and start knowing. Natural ice. Natural ice is where honesty goes to die. Marketed as a bold, high-strength lager, the reality is an adjunct-heavy disaster built on corn and cost-cutting. The grain bill leans on cheap corn adjuncts to boost fermentable sugars, meaning a significant chunk of what you're drinking never started as barley. The freeze distillation process concentrates the alcohol, sure, but it also concentrates every flaw hiding in that bargain bin recipe. Amplified corn sweetness, metallic bitterness, and a solvent burn that has nothing to do with quality brewing. For $5 a six-pack, you might think you're saving money. You're not. You're paying full price for something that's only partially beer. Real beer starts with real ingredients. Natural ice starts with a spreadsheet. And if that bothers you, wait until you see what billion-dollar brands are hiding behind their Super Bowl commercials. Steel Reserve. Steel Reserve takes the adjunct problem and cranks it to maximum. At 8.1% ABV, this high-gravity lager uses a corn-heavy grain bill and aggressive fermentation to hit that number, but the method strips out everything that makes beer worth drinking. There's no careful yeast selection, no balanced malt backbone, just brute force alcohol production with cheap ingredients doing all the heavy lifting. The ingredient reality is bleak. Corn, minimal barley contribution, and a brewing process optimized entirely for strength per penny. The flavor is metallic, harsh, and chemically aggressive because the base recipe was never designed for taste. It was engineered for intoxication economics. At $2 a tall can, Steel Reserve isn't cheap beer. It's an industrial product wearing a beer label. The corn and adjuncts aren't supporting characters. They are the recipe. And that's a pattern you're about to see repeated by brands charging 5 times more with 10 times the marketing. Bud Light. Here's where things start getting uncomfortable. America's best-selling beer doesn't use barley as its primary grain character. Bud Light relies heavily on rice as an adjunct, which strips body, flavor, and character from the beer to create that trademark light, crisp profile. Translation: they replace the most important ingredient in beer with the cheapest filler that produces alcohol without adding taste. The ingredient label reads water, barley malt, rice, hops. But that rice isn't a supporting player. It's doing most of the work, creating a beer that technically qualifies as beer by legal definition, but would fail Germany's 500-year-old purity law before the first sip. Anheuser-Busch InBev spends over $1 billion annually marketing Bud Light. That's more than most countries spend on their entire agricultural sector. They need every penny of it, because without that marketing machine, you'd notice the beer tastes like almost nothing. $1 billion masking what rice and water can't deliver. Actual flavor. But Bud Light's ingredient story is tame compared to the scandal that hit the next beer on our list during the biggest night in television. Coors Light. Coors Light became the center of a national ingredient scandal during the 2019 Super Bowl when Bud Light ran ads exposing a dirty little secret. Coors Light uses corn syrup in its brewing process. The backlash was massive, but here's what most people missed entirely. The corn syrup isn't just a minor addition. It's used as a primary fermentable sugar, meaning the yeast converts that corn syrup into alcohol instead of relying on barley malt to do the job the way traditional brewing intended. Molson Coors argued the corn syrup is consumed during fermentation and doesn't end up in the final product. Technically true, but that's like saying the concrete in your foundation doesn't matter because you can't see it from the living room. The corn syrup fundamentally shapes what this beer becomes. A thin, watery lager with minimal malt character and a finish that evaporates before your tongue can register an opinion. Cold, certified marketing won't change what's sitting in the brew kettle. And if a Super Bowl ad can expose your recipe, maybe the recipe was always the problem. Budweiser. Budweiser calls itself the king of beers, but the king is wearing rice instead of a crown. Up to 30% of Budweiser's grain bill is rice, making it one of the most adjunct-dependent premium beers in America. That rice creates the light, clean profile Budweiser is famous for, but it also means nearly a third of what produces the alcohol in your glass isn't traditional beer grain. Then there's the beechwood aging they've marketed for decades. Sounds impressive, right? The reality is thin strips of beechwood placed in conditioning tanks, not for flavor, but to give yeast something to cling to during secondary fermentation. It's a process aid, not a flavor enhancement. But the marketing department turned a brewing shortcut into a selling point, and millions of drinkers bought the story without asking a single question. At $8 to $10 a six-pack, you're paying premium prices for rice filler and a marketing myth wrapped in red, white, and blue. Budweiser isn't terrible beer. It's a masterclass in convincing you that less is more while charging you for more than you're getting. But the lies don't stop at American borders. The next beer proves that imported doesn't mean honest. Corona Extra. Corona's problems start before you even crack the cap. That iconic clear glass bottle isn't just aesthetic, it's a liability. Ultraviolet light penetrates clear glass and reacts with hop compounds to create a chemical called MBT, the exact same compound found in skunk spray. Every Corona sitting under store lighting is slowly becoming a skunked beer. The brewery knows this, which is why they use light-stable hop extracts to minimize the damage. But the fundamental flaw remains baked into every bottle. Beyond the glass, Corona uses corn as a significant adjunct in the grain bill and propylene glycol alginate as a foam stabilizer. You're looking at a beer with more chemical engineering than most drinkers realize. And that famous lime wedge? It didn't start because lime makes Corona taste amazing. It started because lime masks the skunked flavor that clear glass inevitably creates. You've been squeezing lime into your beer to fix a problem the brewery chose not to solve. At around $9 a six-pack for an import, you're paying premium prices for skunked corn beer with a chemical foam stabilizer and a garnish designed to hide the evidence. But Corona isn't the only import hiding behind a famous colored bottle. Heineken. Heineken's famous green bottle is its greatest marketing asset and its biggest ingredient problem. Like Corona's clear glass, green glass allows enough UV light through to trigger that same skunking reaction. Hop compounds degrade, MBT forms, and what you taste is partially damaged beer. Heineken compensates with light-stable hop extracts, but the baseline flavor already carries what many beer experts identify as DMS, dimethyl sulfide, a compound that creates a faint cooked vegetable or creamed corn note. Some drinkers love it, calling it the Heineken character. Others eventually realize they've been drinking a flavor flaw marketed as personality. Here's the part that should genuinely bother you. Heineken brewed in the Netherlands can taste noticeably different from Heineken brewed under license in other countries. Same green bottle, same label, potentially different water source, different recipe adjustments, different brewery entirely. You might not be drinking what you think you're drinking. At $9 to $10 a six-pack, you're buying an international image. The liquid inside depends entirely on which factory made it and how long it baked under fluorescent lights. But imported deception is just one trick. The next beer proves that premium branding might be the most expensive lie of all. Stella Artois. Stella Artois marketed itself with one of the most brazen taglines in advertising history, reassuringly expensive. But behind that chalice glass and gold foil, the recipe has been quietly downgraded multiple times and they prayed you'd never notice. The ABV was reduced from 5.2% to 4.8% in key markets including the UK. They didn't lower the price when they lowered the beer. They just hoped familiarity would carry the sale. In some production facilities, corn adjuncts have appeared in the grain bill, a far cry from the premium Belgian heritage the branding promises. The Stella Artois that earned its reputation decades ago simply isn't what's inside today's bottles. You're paying for the memory of a better beer. AB InBev, Stella's parent company, owns over 400 beer brands worldwide. When a corporation that size controls the recipe, decisions serve quarterly earnings, not your glass. The chalice, the ritual, the tradition, it's performance art. And for $9 to $11 a six-pack, you're buying front row tickets while the actual beer hides backstage, hoping nobody checks the ingredient list. Blue Moon. Blue Moon is the beer that taught America what fake craft looks like. It sits in the craft section. It has the artisanal orange slice garnish. The label says artfully crafted. But Blue Moon is brewed by Molson Coors, one of the largest beer corporations on the planet. This isn't a small brewery in a converted warehouse. It's a billion-dollar conglomerate dressing up in flannel. The ingredients themselves aren't terrible. Wheat, oats, orange peel, coriander, those are legitimate flavor additions. But the deception is the packaging. Blue Moon was specifically designed to compete with genuine craft breweries while burying its corporate parentage. For years, Molson Coors appeared nowhere on the label. They invented a fictional Blue Moon brewing company to sell authenticity they never had. When you pay craft prices around $9 to $11 a six-pack for a beer engineered by the same corporation that makes Coors Light, you're not buying craft. You're buying a costume party. And the real independent breweries fighting for shelf space on honest ingredients, they lose to this corporate masquerade every single day. But corporate tricks aren't the only game in town. The next beer proves that healthy branding might be the emptiest promise of all. Michelob Ultra. Michelob Ultra is what happens when a marketing department designs a beer instead of a brewmaster. The entire selling point is what's missing. Low calories, low carbs, low alcohol. The result is a beer stripped of virtually everything that makes beer interesting, including most of its barley contribution. Rice does the heavy lifting as an adjunct, producing alcohol without adding flavor, body, or character. At 4.2% ABV and 95 calories, Michelob Ultra is technically beer, the way sparkling water is technically a beverage. It exists, but barely. The fitness marketing is genius. Gym culture branding, athlete partnerships, the implication that choosing this beer makes you health conscious. But here's the reality. If you're truly watching your health, you're not choosing between Michelob Ultra and a craft stout. You're choosing between beer and no beer. And no beer wins every time. For $8 to $10 a six-pack, you're paying full beer prices for rice water with an expensive gym membership advertisement attached. But here is exactly where this list turns. Everything above this point was hiding something from you. The beers coming next start telling the truth. And what honest beer tastes like compared to everything we just exposed. It's going to make you furious you didn't know sooner. Pabst Blue Ribbon. After 15 minutes of deception, PBR hits like a cold splash of honesty. This is a straightforward American lager that doesn't pretend to be something it's not. The ingredient list is simple. Water, barley malt, corn, hops, and yeast. Yes, there's corn. But here's the critical difference. PBR doesn't spend hundreds of millions hiding that fact behind lifestyle marketing, fake craft labels, or Super Bowl distractions. It shows up on the shelf, charges you $4 to $6 a six-pack, and lets the beer do the talking. The recipe dates back to 1844, and while it won't rival a German Pilsner, it delivers clean, balanced, unpretentious flavor that respects what it is. Mild malt sweetness, light hop presence, crisp finish, no chemical foam stabilizers, no identity crisis. PBR won a blue ribbon at the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition, and for what it costs, that award honestly still holds up 130 years later. Cheap beer done with integrity. Not perfect, but honest. And in a market drowning in deception, honest counts for more than you think. Guinness. Guinness deserves massive credit for something almost no legacy beer brand ever does. It actually cleaned up its act and told you about it. For over 2 centuries, Guinness used isinglass, a fining agent derived from fish swim bladders, to clarify its beer. Vegetarians, vegans, and anyone uncomfortable with fish innards floating through their stout were simply out of luck. But in 2018, Guinness completed a years-long process overhaul and removed isinglass entirely from draft and canned production, making them fully vegan-friendly. The ingredient list is now remarkably clean. Water, barley, roasted barley, hops, yeast, no corn, no rice, no adjuncts, no artificial coloring. That famous dark color comes entirely from roasted barley, the same way coffee gets its color from roasted beans. The nitrogen infusion creating the signature cascading pour? That's pure physics, not chemistry. At $8 to $9 a 4-pack, Guinness delivers an honest, transparent, genuinely crafted beer from a global brand that reformed its own recipe to be cleaner when nobody forced them to. That should make every brand we exposed in the first half of this list deeply, profoundly uncomfortable. But even Guinness isn't the most honest beer on this list. Modelo Especial. Modelo Especial recently overtook Bud Light as the best-selling beer in America, and the ingredient story explains exactly why. While American macros were busy replacing barley with rice and swapping grain for corn syrup, Modelo built its recipe on Pilsner malt, keeping barley at the center of the beer where it belongs. The result is noticeably richer, more flavorful, and more balanced than most of its American competition, because it starts with better raw ingredients from the first step of the process. Grupo Modelo's brewing emphasizes traditional techniques, clean fermentation, and genuine malt character instead of adjunct-driven shortcuts. There are no corn syrup scandals here, no beechwood aging myths, no skunking from cheap glass. The amber bottle protects the beer. The recipe respects the drinker. At the exact same price point as Bud Light and Coors Light, Modelo delivers dramatically more actual beer in every single sip. America didn't just switch brands. America figured out what real ingredients taste like and voted with 40 million wallets. But even Modelo can't match the purity standards set by the next beer on this list. Samuel Adams Boston Lager. Samuel Adams. Boston Lager is what happens when a brewer puts ingredients above everything else. Founder Jim Koch built this beer around Germany's Reinheitsgebot, the beer purity law written in 1516 that permits only 4 ingredients: water, barley malt, hops, and yeast. No rice, no corn, no adjuncts, no foam stabilizers, no shortcuts of any kind. The barley is two-row, the gold standard for malt quality. The hops are German Hallertau Mittelfrüh, among the finest noble hops on earth. The yeast is a proprietary lager strain Koch's family has maintained for generations. Every single ingredient decision prioritizes flavor over cost savings. The brewing process includes decoction mashing, a traditional technique that builds richer, more complex malt character, but takes more time and costs more money. Most American breweries abandoned this method decades ago because the accountants said so. Samuel Adams kept it because the brewmaster said the beer tastes better. At $8 to $10 a six-pack, this is Reinheitsgebot compliant beer at mass-market American prices. While billion-dollar brands burn their budgets on Super Bowl ads and celebrity endorsements, Samuel Adams spends theirs on actual ingredients. And you taste the difference in every single sip. But even Sam Adams takes second place because the champion of this list has been doing honest brewing longer than any beer company in America. Yuengling Traditional Lager, America's oldest brewery, family-owned since 1829. 6 generations of one family staking their name on what goes into every single bottle. Yuengling Traditional Lager doesn't need a billion-dollar marketing machine because the Yuengling family bet everything on one radical idea. Just make honest beer and trust people to notice. The ingredient list is exactly what beer should be. Premium barley malt as the foundation, a small traditional proportion of corn used transparently and proportionally, not as a cost-cutting crutch. Cascade and cluster hops for balanced bitterness, and a proprietary yeast strain the family has maintained for nearly 200 years. No rice filler, no corn syrup, no mystery natural flavors, no propylene glycol alginate, no caramel coloring. The amber color comes from roasted caramel malt, the way color was always supposed to get into beer. The flavor comes from actual brewing, not laboratory optimization or marketing psychology. Yuengling has never been bought by a multinational conglomerate. It has never been reformulated to shave pennies per barrel for quarterly earnings. It has never run a Super Bowl ad, paid a celebrity to hold a bottle, or invented a fake craft identity to fool you into paying more. For $5 to $7 a six-pack, Yuengling Traditional Lager is often the cheapest beer on the shelf, and it is, without question, the most honest. While the biggest brands in America were replacing barley with rice, swapping grain for corn syrup, skunking beer in cheap glass, hiding corporate ownership behind fake craft labels, and spending billions to make sure you never look too closely at the ingredient list. Yuengling was doing what they've done since 1829, brewing real beer and trusting you to taste the difference. This is the champion. Not because it's fancy, not because it's rare, because it's real. And in an industry built on decades of deception, real is the most revolutionary thing a beer can be. 15 popular beers. The ingredient truth behind every single one. From corn syrup and rice fillers to skunked bottles, fake craft labels, and foam stabilizers you were never supposed to know about, the beer industry has been betting you'd never look too closely. Now you know. If this video changed how you look at beer, hit subscribe, drop a comment telling me which ingredient shocked you most, and go spend your money on a beer that actually deserves it.